after my microphone has been switched off by my assistant. This is Katie's first clerking of the Planning Committee, so I'm sure everything is going to go 150%. So welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. My name is Councillor Peter Clark and I am the chair of the committee and will be chairing it this evening. Members and officers, please raise your hand to indicate if you wish to speak. Please keep your microphones on mute when you are not speaking. Please can I also ask that any questions are kept brief and to the point, and I would like to remind ward councillors to sit separately from the committee while applications in their ward are being considered and voted on by the committee. And that in fact will apply to me on 2 occasions this evening. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence and substitutions. Katie.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor White, Councillor Weldon and Councillor Lawton, and Councillor Beeman will be substituting for Councillor White. Are there any other apologies? No, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Minutes of the last meeting. Can I ask members if they can approve the minutes or have they got any questions they'd like to raise? Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Katie, do we have any?
Chair, I've not been made aware of any at all. Are there any members that wish to make any declarations at this point in time? No, thank you.
Item 4, questions from members of the public. Katie, do we have any questions?
There are no questions from the public.
And do we have any questions from members?
There are no questions from members.
Item 6, relevant updates to government guidance or legislation since the last meeting. I'm asking Claire, Head of Planning Development, to update us if we have anything to report.
Chair, there's nothing to report to the committee this evening.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair, could I ask, I was really hoping that this item would enlighten some of us about the legislation or the procedures governing grey belt, because that is going to be quite a hot topic this evening. And I was going to ask, well, has it actually been tested, that definition in the courts and all that sort of thing?
In fact, you've beaten me to it, Councillor Munro, because I was going to ask the Head of Planning exactly the same thing on the first item, but now would be a good opportunity.
So members, as you are all aware, the National Planning Policy Framework changed on the 12th of December 2024, and as part of that change, the concept of grey belt was introduced. So we're now 11 months into grey belt. And there have been a number of judicial reviews, not within this council, relating to the test for grey belt. And we are seeing a significant number of appeal decisions being determined by the inspectorate on grey belt. The definition is set out in the glossier in Annex 2 to the NPPF, and the committee report goes into the detail of the relevant paragraphs and the definition within the glossier. So grey belt has been well and truly tested. I think the experience that we have to date of appeals is that the inspectorate are seeming to take a very broad definition of the criteria for grey belt, i.e. we have recently lost some appeals on grey belt. Those decisions that are subject to the appeal predated the change to the NPPF, but nevertheless the planning inspectorate must make decisions based on the legislation at the point they make the decision, not at the time the council made its decision to refuse planning permission. So they are giving a clear interpretation of the NPPF and grey belt. So yes, I think Councillor Munro, to your answer, there is now quite a lot that gives a very clear guidance, the way the inspectorate are dealing with grey belt and case law on it.
Thank you, Claire. Item 7 is appeals decisions. There are a number of appeal decisions in the documents. Do any members have questions, or are they happy to note? Thank you. I'll take silence as a yes. Number 8, we now move into applications that are subject to public speaking. And the first item is PIP/2025/002027, land-centred coordinates, well, I won't read them out, in Green Lane Church in Farnham. This is an application for permission in principle for the erection of up to 4 dwellings as amended by plans and the additional information received in April. This, as the case officer will explain, PIP, I believe, this is the first one in front of the committee. Is it not? No. All right. It's the first one that since I've been a member. So over to Dana Nixon, who is the case officer.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone.
It's one nearest the screen.
Dana, this is live, by the way.
Pardon?
This is live.
Yes, sorry, I'm just, I've lost the presentations. Bear with me a second. Okay, sorry about that. So this application. So the application for permission in principle, it's for the erection of up to 4 dwellings. And I will go straight to the first slide. On 1st of June 2018, a new route for obtaining planning permission by an application became available for most small housing-led developments, an application for permission in principle, followed by an application for technical details consent. The National Planning Practice Guidance states that the scope of the permission in principle is limited to location, land use, and amount of development. Only issues related to these in principle matters should be considered at the permission in principle stage, or other matters should be considered at the technical detail stage, consent stage. This is an application for permission in principle only. As such, the only matters for consideration are location, appropriateness of proposed residential use, and amount of development. The issues relevant to these in principle matters are impact on the green belt and whether the site can be considered as grey belt, impact on the national landscape, former AONB and AGLV, and impact on the heritage assets. I've also done a slide, just an overview of grey belt. It is acknowledged that the previous application for permission in principle at this location was refused due to the impact on the green belt, as that site was not considered to accord to the exception of limited infill in a village. The NPPF was updated in December 2024 and introduced the consideration of a grey belt. The previous application and the appeal decision precedes the updated NPPF. The grey belt is defined in the framework as land in the green belt comprising previously developed and or other land that does not strongly contribute to any of the purposes listed in paragraph 143, namely A, to check the unrestricted sprawl of large build-up areas, B, to prevent neighboring towns merging into one another, and it must be noted this applies to towns, not villages, and D, to preserve the setting and special character of historic towns. The next slide shows the site location outlined in red on the left and an aerial view with the site highlighted in blue on the right-hand side. This next slide shows the location in relation to the surrounding built-up area to the north and east in particular, and the site location in relation to the rural settlement of Church. The rural settlement of Church is highlighted in blue, and outlined in red is the application site. The existing and proposed site plans show the site as it is at the moment. It's an area of grass surrounded by trees, and the one on the right shows an indicative layout how 4 dwellings can be accommodated on the site. This is a photograph of the site, the street scene of the site. And this is a photograph looking in depth of the site. And across the road from the site, straight across in the middle and looking towards left and right on the other 2 photographs. Apologies. That's it. Sorry if you've got any questions.
Thank you, Dana. We have 3 speakers on this application this evening. The first one on the list is Lisa Martin. Is Lisa Martin in the gallery? Or online?
She's just coming forward.
Oh, you're there. Sorry, if you come down to the front and take a seat. Anywhere, yeah. And Lisa, you have 4 minutes from when you start speaking. If you turn your microphone on, it's the middle button and it'll light up red. There we go. Over to you. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lisa Martin and I'm speaking to object to the proposed development. I'm speaking to you as a neighbour of the application site and also as a planning professional. I will talk first about the history of the site, then I'll consider the revised National Planning Policy Framework changes, and finally, I will ask you to consider where this potential grey belt ends, what precedent could you set here tonight? First, the history. I live in the adjacent property, Hop House, which shares a boundary of approximately 30 metres with the application site. Before 1979, there was no boundary. This field was part of our property. On selling the house with 2 acres of land in 1979, the then owner retained approximately 2 acres, which has occasionally been used as a field for horses. A portion of that field forms the application site being considered this evening. Moving on to the policy framework. As you know, Waverley, refused this application in March last year and it was later dismissed at appeal. The only thing that's changed since then is the revised NPPF. With my professional hat on, I welcome the revised framework which seeks to enable good, sustainable development which meets our housing needs. However, I cannot agree that this site does, and I will set out why. The framework states that the development of homes in the Greenbelt should not be regarded as inappropriate where 4 conditions apply. I believe those conditions do not apply here. The first of those conditions is where the development would utilise grey-belt land. Clearly, this site is not previously developed land, the first interpretation of grey belt. To be appropriate for development, we also need to agree that this site, if it were classified as grey belt, would not fundamentally undermine the purpose of the remaining green belt. I believe it does undermine the purpose. The application site provides a check on the unrestricted sprawl of the built-up area of Churt. The village has a defined settlement area which this application sits outside of. The field provides a purpose in preventing the sprawl of the village into the fields beyond. The second condition is that there is a demonstrable unmet need for the type of development proposed. There are just under 500 homes in Churt. So far, approval has been given to build a further 15 in the local plan period, and there are plans for more. This site is not the right one to meet Waverley's wider supply problem, as I will demonstrate next. The third condition is that the development should be in a sustainable location with particular reference to paragraphs 110 and 115 of the framework. Paragraph 110 states that significant development should be focused on locations which are or can be made sustainable through limiting the need to travel and offering a genuine choice of transport modes. Churt Village does not limit the need to travel nor offer a genuine choice of transport modes. The relatively narrow carriageway of the A287 south of Green Lane has no footpaths to facilitate safe walking to neighbouring Beacon Hill, and there are no cycle routes to nearby towns. Residents need to travel outside of the village for nearly all everyday services. Adding 4 new houses on this site will not make a stronger case for new sustainable transport links when we compete for funding with denser parts of Waverley and Surrey. The last point I want to make is, where does this apparent grey belt end? Does it include the other part of the field, also owned by the applicant? Does it include the 3 large fields that lie directly south of the development site? What about the fields located just another 100 metres east along Green Lane? Could the green belt in Churt change forever? Given the importance of this, and as the developer will no doubt appeal a rejection, I suggest that you reject this application so it can go to the Planning Inspectorate for them to review and decide how broad a definition of the green belt will apply to Waverley. Thank you.
Thank you. You stopped clapping just as I was about to ask you to stop clapping. So, thank you, Lisa. That was well timed. The second speaker is the applicant, and it is I assume, Mr. Kit Stokes. And he is online.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for the opportunity to speak. As you said before, the application is a permission in principle for up to 4 dwellings at Green Lane Churt. Now, we have submitted some written statements which explain the permission in principle route, and we do refer to some of the grey belt issues and explanations that have already been discussed this evening. Now, the proposal is submitted as grey belt development, and it is following changes to the NPPF last year, which are relevant after the previous appeal decision was issued. For a site to be grey belt, it cannot contribute strongly to 3, not the 4 reasons that the lady earlier referred to. So firstly, for a site to be grey belt, it mustn't prevent the merging of towns. It must preserve historic settlements, and it must contribute to preventing the urban sprawl of large built-up areas. Now, this is key. Churt is not a large built-up area, it's a village. And that's a very important distinction in terms of the case law that you need to refer to. In the opinion of the case officer and the applicant, the site doesn't contribute to these 3 functions of the Greenbelt. In 2014, Waverley Borough Council commissioned a Greenbelt review. Part 2 of this review identified the site in this part of the village as suitable for development because it did not contribute strongly to the openness of the Greenbelt. Now, that's something that we would like you to refer back to. The Grey Belt designation was introduced to address the chronic housing shortage, and the council can only demonstrate a 1.28-year housing supply. So a demonstrable undersupply of housing exists. In terms of the sustainable location, from the previous appeal decision, the inspector did identify the site as being in a generally sustainable location with reasonable access to facilities and services in the village. So we think that it does meet the rules for Grey Belt in terms of accessibility. There has been some mention of the trees, and a small number of trees on the front of the site were felled. However, an area to be restocked has been agreed with the Forestry Commission, and this will be complied with, and it doesn't impact the development as proposed in this application. So in terms of the Grey Belt, the previous inspector referred that the site has a contained nature. It displays few special qualities of the Surrey Hills National Landscape. So if you take all this together, the site strongly meets the criteria necessary to be Grey Belt in line with the NPPF and the presumption in favour of sustainable development. And just to finish, these small sites, they can be judged on their merits. They don't need to create a strong precedent, but small sites are how villages have organically evolved, and they are better for the character of the Greenbelt, the rural area, and they're better for residents. If we have small housing developments which are built out by small and medium-sized developers rather than large greenfield developments, which you will see, which destroy the character of these small villages. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stokes. The committee has now heard two opposing views. We'll switch to the third and final speaker and we'll listen to the wise words of Councillor Munro.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm grateful for Lisa Martin, who used to be chair of the Parish Council, for expressing her views, which I know are felt by the whole Parish Council and indeed by an awful number of residents. I think the grey belt issue is clearly an important one, and matters have been clarified to a large extent of what that actually means in practice. Clarified not according to the wishes of many people in this room, I expect, but we are in a rather better area. But there's still a considerable grey area of judgment. And the question of sustainability has been mentioned already, and there have been opposing views on that. But it is the view of many residents, and I include myself there, that this new development, which is double the number of houses in the old one, which was refused, is not sustainable in a pretty small, compact village, and it would be, in the views of many, an alien presence in that particular location, and I think that is the main. The main topic which committee members may wish to address. The rules are there, and there's no point in flouting the rules. They are clear, but the rules do leave a lot of room for individual judgment of planning councillors, and I would ask them to think very carefully before they impose a development which is alien to this village. Think very carefully before they agree this in principle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Munro. We'll come back to you if you wish to sum up after the debate. But we're now over to the members. As Councillor Munro has said, it's a matter of judgment. We don't have clear definitions. You've heard the judgment of the planning case officer. So I now hand it over to the committee, and we have Councillor Coburn with her hand.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm incredibly uneasy about this for all sorts of reasons. As far as I know, we have a green belt policy, and we haven't done anything beyond the green belt review that fed into our last local plan to change anything that any of our main policies on green belt. I accept that the NPPF has brought in grey belt, but it is much more specific. It is your low quality land, it's previously developed land, it's car parks, it's old filling stations. There's a whole load of stuff that everyone can see should be used for building. And we've always had the ability to develop on small bits of land within the green belt as long as we could make a case. We did it in Chiddingfold, I seem to recall, when we had a tiny bit of green belt that was washed over by the green belt, but it had built form there. And, you know, basically the village was very supportive. This is a very dangerous precedent to look at a piece of land outside any built-up area boundary and just arbitrarily determine that it's grey belt. I find it quite extraordinary that we would do that. I mean, you could do it anywhere. You just got to, if this is a rule we're applying, you know, where does it stop? If we had looked at the green belt and we had decided on where the grey belt was, I would have no problem with this. But I just think this is an inappropriate way to define basically a piece of a piece of green belt which is outside a settlement boundary. And I just feel we got it right last time, and we should continue to get it right. And I think this is a totally inappropriate definition of this piece of land in order to engineer development on it. I mean, were it a piece of land that, as I say, was washed over by the green belt, we could make a case. But I don't think it is. I think it is what it says it is. It's, you know, a green field which is beyond the settlement boundary. And to me, we should not be giving permission for this. Thank you, Chairman.
I must remind members in the public gallery that this is a meeting held in public. It's not a public meeting, so please, I hope I won't have to mention it again. We now have Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question and then more of a comment to follow on from what Carol said. My first question, and then I will go on, is whether there's any statistics and numbers of whether Churt has made its sort of delivered minimum required housing. I know obviously Waverley doesn't have a 5-year housing supply, and so that's slightly separate, but is there any parameters on whether Churt has contributed the full amount, or at least the minimum required? And then I'll just go on to my comment. I do agree with Lisa and the Churt Parish Council, and I'm very pro us meeting our housing needs. In no way do I feel like I'm a NIMBY, but I don't think this is the right location, and I feel like neither do, and looking at the objections, neither do the residents, which is I think really important. I think my main objection is that I really do think this would intrude on the rural character of the Surrey Hills. That's sort of my main contention there. And I just think fundamentally, yes, it's a small site, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve our full protection. And I agree with Carol that it does set a dangerous precedent for our rural villages. And so I know I also have major concerns for this.
Thank you. You had a question there, which I'll hand over to the head of planning, which was, is there such a thing as Churt achieving its target?
Yes, so members, the housing number given to us is a number for the borough, not a number for just parts of the borough. So the tilted balance applies because the number is across the whole of the borough. I just think it would be worth just advising members at this point, the previous appeal was refused, the application was refused on 2 grounds, but the appeal was only dismissed on 1. The second ground, which was impact on the AONB, was not upheld by the inspector.
Any other speakers? Councillor MacLeod and then Councillor Beaman.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say I broadly agree with almost everything that Councillor Coburn said, actually. And I was actually drawn to the final comment by the lady who objected that this may be one we should be leaving to the planning inspector. I don't actually see how this doesn't set a precedent, actually. The one thing that did worry me, though, was the comment from the applicant that Waverley had previously defined this land in a previous document as suitable for development. I wonder if that could be explained, if that was absolutely said absolutely correctly. Have Waverley previously defined this land as suitable for development?
So the speaker was referring to the evidence base that supported the last local plan, which was a piece of work around the quality of the Greenbelt, which was a 2015 document. So there's already been that assessment that supported the previous local plan. We're obviously now in a position where the government has introduced a policy that allows development in a grey belt, and that policy overrides policies in the local plan effectively. As members are aware, we're preparing a new local plan, and there is a new piece of work which will be an updated evidence base on the grey belt and the green belt that will inform the local plan. But unfortunately, the changes the government have made to the NPPF means you as a committee have to make a decision based on the policy in the NPPF and what you know at this point in time, rather than saying either that we won't make a decision and we'll leave it to the planning inspectorate, or that we won't make a decision and we'll wait for the local plan to be adopted. You don't have that luxury, and nor do we as officers.
Thank you, Claire. Councillor Beaman and then Councillor Rivers.
Thank you very much, Chair. sometimes I wonder why we have planning committees when the rules keep changing so fast. That's, you know, less than a year ago I had an appeal dismissed for 2 dwellings and now we come back with 4 dwellings. It seems that the government keeps changing the rules so they can finally meet this overambitious housing target. But I have to say, in this particular case, I totally agree. It seems to be a totally unsustainable location for any development, to be quite frank. And no matter what interpretation one has of Greybelt, and I don't think I can support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beeman. Councillor Rivers.
Thank you very much. Well, I feel rather contrary to everybody else. I feel that we absolutely should remember that we do not have a sufficient housing supply. We have also been advised what the inspectorate's view of the grey belt is, and that I'm persuaded by the argument that small organic growth in a village is preferable to larger development. Surely Churt would appreciate 4 more houses. And as for the alien aspect, one of my favourite TV programmes was Lark Rise to Candleford. And I remember how very upset when they were by the alien train coming to the village. And then, of course, they were really glad of it.
Thank you for that lesson on entertainment as well. We have Councillor Gale and then Councillor Rubini.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's got to be left up to the inspector to determine whether this is really grey belt, because I don't think we have enough information in front of us to make that decision right now. There are some things which you could put onto that piece of land, but there are others which you could actually not put onto that piece of land. If we were looking at this without the question of grey belt, I don't think we would approve it. And I think that's where the stumbling block lies. However, as Councillor Rivers just said, yes, small developments in villages are preferable to a large swathe of building, but I think that's got to be in the right place. And I don't feel this is quite the right place.
Councillor Rubini.
Yes, could I ask if the officer could show the location plan again, please?
This is the location plan outlined in red and the aerial view. And on the next slide, you can see it better in the relation with the other build-up area to the north, east, and some to the west. And there's also further dwelling to the south. And here we can see the site in relation to the rural settlement of Churt that adjoins directly to the north. There's also development directly to the east, and there are also some houses to the west.
Apologies, I can't see the red lines there. Well, where exactly is the development going to be in that blue area?
It's here. Can you see where
Just that little block there.
Can you see where my cursor is?
Okay,
That's
because, yeah,
the cursor is right in the middle.
I am struggling because, of course, you've heard 2 different views. My problem is, as you know, I come from Hazelmere. We have the problem that we have very little land for housing, and Churt is exactly the same. So what's proposed for us and other areas is to infill. Now, there's an argument now, as everybody said, about grey belt land, whether this falls in that or not. So my problem is, it looks from that map as though it could be classed as an infill. It's very close to those houses. Then where does the spread end? So I'm still not convinced either way. I think, as I said, that if we can find gaps to fill in, because we don't make those housing numbers, I think we have to go for it because we need housing and we just haven't got the land to build new ones.
I think we have Councillor Keane next.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, my concern really, I think possibly with Councillor Coburn actually, is that there are other fields around this, and you know, it is a concern of a creeping development, frankly. You know, you've got fields. If you look at it, there are fields all around this site. And I do wonder if it really is the right place to put housing. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Before we go, we have to make a decision. Sorry, there aren't any other speakers, so I'll go back to Councillor Munro to sum up.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would just like to make one point which hasn't come up. Waverley Borough Council do own some land right very close to the centre in Churt, and they are working up a plan to build 12 small-scale and affordable houses there, and that's got wide support from the community, although it will have to pass through the normal planning process. And I think there was an undercurrent, to put it no more, that sort of Churt wasn't playing its part in providing housing and as much as it should. But what I'm saying, I hope relieves people's minds on that. There will be new housing going into that village, arguably in a more sustainable location, and that may affect your members' judgment of which way to go.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. We'll then move to the recommendation, and the recommendation is that, subject to conditions, permission is granted. Now, we're going to use the old-fashioned method of voting. There is a technical issue with the electronic system. So I will first of all, and remember, permission be granted means that you are voting for a yes vote effectively. So those in favour that permission should be granted, please raise your hands.
Sorry, 1, 2, 3.
That permission should be refused, please raise your hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's refused.
Refusal.
Does anybody wish to come forward with a motion for the reason for refusal? Councillor Coburn.
Well, I was really going to come in first of all with a proposal for that it be refused, the application be refused, because we haven't actually voted on that. And the reason is to do with the rural nature of the site and the character of the area. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, if anyone else can join in with.
So, members, if I can maybe assist you, you might like to reflect on the previous reason for refusal that was upheld at appeal, and then also reflect on the fact that you've got a grey belt argument. So the proposal would constitute inappropriate green belt development. There is no very special circumstances that would clearly outweigh the identified harm to the green belt, including harm to the openness, and the proposal would therefore conflict with RE2 of the local plan, DM14 of the local plan, and the NPPF. So you might want to reflect something around that you don't believe this falls within the definition of grey belt. I'll leave it to you to suggest a reason for refusal.
I think that covers it. Councillor Coburn.
Well, that's exactly why, you know, I would support exactly what Claire has just said, because our policy at the moment, as far as I'm concerned, is to protect the green belt unless there are very special circumstances that we can prove that says it should take development. And we can't, I don't think we have got any policy at the moment that overrides our green belt policy on land such as this. You know, I agree on the big sites where you can define grey belt, but I think, you know, to define a small field as grey belt on the outskirts of one village, to me, it's not how policy should be made.
So, members, just playing that back to you, is suggesting that the proposal would constitute inappropriate green belt development and does not meet the grey belt criteria, and therefore, and the rest of it.
So, members, Yep, Councillor Sullivan is seconding it. Excuse me, Members have heard the motion read out. We now have to vote on that. Those in favour of that motion, please raise their hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And those against?
1, 2, 3. So that's refused, Chair.
We've got there. Thank you. And thank you, members of the public in the gallery. We now move on to the next application, which is, I will now allow the Vice Chair to take over this application in front of the committee, and I will now move to the back of the room, as I'm told.
Let's come this way.
So agenda item number 10 is WA 2025-00281, Quarry House, Gardeners Hill, Lowerbourne, Farnham. This is for the erection of 4 dwellings with installation of air source heat pumps and solar panels, also associated garaging, parking and landscaping following the demolition of the existing building, dwelling, garage and outbuildings. Dana, over to you.
Just a second, please. Apologies.
What would be in there?
And apologies, everyone. The next application is at Quarry House on Gardeners Hill Road, Lowerbourne, Farnham. And it's for the erection of 4 dwellings with installation of air source heat pumps and solar panels, associated garaging, parking and landscaping following demolition of existing dwelling, garage and outbuildings. The first slide shows the site location outlined in red, and on the right-hand side, an aerial view with the site highlighted in blue. The next slide shows the site location in relation to the surrounding built-up area to the north, east, and south. And again, the site location in relation to the settlement boundary, Farnham, which adjoins directly to the north of the site. The proposed dwellings would use the existing access from Gardeners Hill Road and existing and improved tracks within the site. The applicant has agreed to enter into a legal agreement to secure a contribution of £10,000 for highway improvements, namely an extension of the virtual footway on Gardeners Hill Road and a new 30 miles per hour speed limit with gateway feature. This is a photograph of the existing access from Gardeners Hill Road. They will be used by the proposed dwellings. The next slide shows the existing and the proposed site plan. They are clearly two sections to this side, a northern one and a southern one, joined together and access using the same access. This is the existing dwelling to be demolished, and these are the plans for the existing dwelling to be demolished. Plot 1, plans and elevations, it'll be a two-story detached house, and a section at the bottom of the page shows a difference in land levels from the top of the site to the bottom of the site. Plot 2, it's a single-story house with a detached garage. Plot 3 is a two-story house, and the plot 3 will use the existing carport on site that's going to be demolished and rebuilt the same size that will be used by plot number 3. And plot number 4, again, it's a detached two-story house with detached garage. All the dwellings will be built in the traditional Sari vernacular and use a traditional palette of materials. Now we're going to look at the impact on neighbouring properties, starting to the ones to the north of the site, Stable Close, the rear gardens backing into the rear boundary of the two dwellings in the northern part of the site. The properties on Stable Close are situated on significantly higher ground levels than the application site, as can be clearly seen from this photograph and the next two photographs close up. Looking at plot number 1, the nearest property would be number 20, Stable Close, located at a minimum separation distance of 21 meters. This is a section showing the difference in levels and at the 25-degree angle taken from a meter above the ground level that clearly does not meet the proposal at any part. So in effect, from the properties in Stable Close, a two-story dwelling will look much like a single-story dwelling. This is plot number 2 and the relationship with the properties in Stable Close, which are locating a minimum of 23 meters to the north. And this is a section showing that the properties in Stable Close will see the roof line of the proposed dwelling only. Moving on to the neighbouring properties in Frensham Vale, they are located to the south of the southern part of the site, and they are on lower ground levels than the application site. This is a photograph taken from the application site towards the property in Stable Close, and you can see here in the distance, you can just about see the roof lines. It also must be noted that there's this significant screening, so these photographs are taken from the properties in Stable Close looking towards the application site. It is acknowledged as a mixture of evergreen and deciduous trees and shrubs, and these photographs were taken in September. So in the winter months, there will be less coverage than it is now. However, they are located quite a distance away, as you will see from the next slides. The nearest property would be Lee House. At the minimum separation, sorry, that's plot 3, Lee House. It will be a separation distance of at least 35 meters to the south. It is noted that these properties have a very small rear boundary in the amenity area as it's located to the front. And this is again a 25-degree sight line showing a 25-degree angle taken from 1 meter above ground level going towards the plot 3. So you can see it's a considerable distance away. And again, the test will not meet the proposal. The nearest property to the new dwellings will be Frensham Vale. That has a rear distance, a rear boundary of 20 meters, which coupled with the distance from plot 4 to the rear boundary will be in excess of 30 meters, sorry. And again, we've got cyclone test taken from Lee House in the middle towards plot 4. And while it will show that if we carry on this line, it will probably just about touch the roof here. the line, the test is only taken up to 26 meters, so it might meet something well in the distance, but that will not affect it in any way because it complies with the 25-degree test. This is the street scene from Gardeners Hill Road. What we see at the moment is the gated access and a carport that's going to be replaced by garaging to serve plot 3. So in effect, the view from Gardeners Hill Road will remain very much the same as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have speakers. The first is Karen Clark. You have 4 minutes from when you start speaking. And as the chair said, the button to turn on your microphone is the big one in the middle.
Good evening. I'm Karen Clark of Headley Clark Planning Consultancy, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant and in support of your office's recommendation to approve. As you're probably all too aware, the council's lack of housing land supply places a clear and strong presumption in favour of development, unless any adverse impact of granting permission would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, with particular regard given to directing development to sustainable locations, making the effective use of land and securing well-designed places. Officers of this council and county highways recognise this edge of settlement site as being sustainably located. The scheme does deliver a sensitive yet effective use of previously developed land and is well designed, all of which attracts substantial weight. However, even without this tilted balance in favour of granting permission, this scheme is compliant with local plan policy. It would not generate adverse impact, a clear view supported by officers in the committee report. Whilst none of the statutory consultees have raised objection to the proposal, Farnham Town Council and third parties have. The objection includes matters of principle. However, it is respectfully noted this site is previously developed, is edge of settlement, and local plans do not in any event preclude this development in this location. Concerns have been expressed about highway safety. These are not supported by county highways. Safe access, servicing and parking arrangements are proposed, and the applicant has agreed to a contribution for the extension of the virtual footpath and speed limit along Gardeners Hill Road. Concerns have been raised in relation to ecology and biodiversity. Surrey Wildlife do not share or support these concerns. Biodiversity net gain would be secured by the purchase of credits for off-site works, a measure that was introduced by the government and is appropriate. All trees would be protected and conditions are recommended to secure this. The scheme includes sustainable drainage measures and provides assurance a policy-compliant design can be achieved. The imposition of a drainage condition is standard and there is no evidence to suggest the proposal would generate surface water flood risk. With regard to the impact on neighbouring residents, officers have been presented accurate CAD-based images that clearly demonstrate plots 1 and 2 would not cause harm to residents at Stable Close, with the design, siting, intervening screening and separation distances ensuring such. Similarly, plots 3 and 4 have been carefully sited and designed to avoid harm to the properties along Frensham Court, as shown in the sections presented to you this evening. The siting and orientation of plots 3 and 4, the strong separation distances achieved, the intervening trees, many of which are evergreen, together with the critical angles shown on the sections demonstrate the scheme would not cause harm and in fact exceeds the SPD advice in this regard, even allowing for the change in levels. This scheme is not unduly ambitious. It strikes a sensitive balance between delivering 4 high-quality dwellings whilst retaining the wooded and spacious character and setting of this site. Good design is engaged with the property's individual and character and drawing on traditional influences and materials. The committee report provides a thorough assessment and demonstrates the proposal to be policy compliant in all respects. Planning law determines permission should be granted in such circumstances, with this presumption further endorsed by the tilted balance now demanded by the lack of 5-year housing land supply. We respectfully ask you to support the findings of the expert reports, consultee responses and the conclusions of your officers and grant planning permission for this sensitive and high quality proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our ward councillor is Councillor Ward. You have 4 minutes as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. few things strike me about this. The huge number of previous rejections on this site. The highways issue has always been interesting. I remember thinking back to when we were looking at the development at Baker Oats, and a whole bevy of councillors went down the road and spent their time jumping into the bushes to avoid the cars flying down the road. So we've been offered an extension to the virtual footpath. I wonder how we're going to explain to the parents of a child about the virtual accident that might happen. When people start talking about, effectively, I suppose, cesspits in the modern age because they can't connect to the drainage, because there are problems with sewage, I do get a little apprehensive as to what we're looking at, and I do find that something that causes me concerns. I remember long ago when I first sat on planning committees, I was told that sewage is not a planning consideration, but it's certainly a consideration for the nearby residents if it doesn't work very well. 23 people have objected. I'm surprised none of them are talking, but they have various objections about the design of the houses, which I will not go into, and the general character. So I think my concerns are, I just don't agree with the highways idea. I find this idea of virtual footpath not very useful and certainly dangerous. I drive down that road often, and people, they do tend to speed. It's not a great road to drive down, but this happens. Again, drainage, we're concreting over large areas. We are reducing that, and I have a feeling we're going to get some surface water flying around where these plans tell us it won't. And I did love the 25 degrees sight lines. I'm one of these lucky people that's got 360 degrees sight, so I don't think the 25-degree thing was really cutting much ice with me. And this word sustainable. Sustainable has become a very elastic term in the English language when it's applied to planning. I remember I was once told something was sustainable because there was a bus stop within walking distance. I'm not sure this one even has that. And for those that think it's easy to hike to the shops, I hope there are going to be some fit residents taking up these houses. I'll leave it at that for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, over to you. Councillor Beaman.
Just a question of detail. It says that the last application for permission was refused as 12th of August this year. Is that correct?
Excuse me, which application number did you quote it?
It's on page 94.
Oh, the permission, the application for permission in principle, yes. The reason that was pulled up in the associated application is because it actually refers to, let me share my screen again. It actually refers to this area. Can you see it here, this wooded area? But he proposes to use the same entrance from access from Gardner Hill Road. So that's the reason why it pulled up into the associate applications. There was like a fraction to the east, there was common. This is a completely different application. So there were 4 houses, up to 5 houses proposed here that would need the removal of a large wooded area. So there is not really, that's why I put down in italics, the proposed is the same access. That's the only history shared. It's this area here. So where the houses were proposed to go is a completely different site. But I know some of the objectors mentioned this application, the objections, and I wanted to make sure I included. And if the questions I can explain, it's this area here for the PEEP.
Councillor Coburn. Yes, I'm really conflicted on this one, to say the least. I find some of the statements about, like Councillor Ward, the site is adjacent to the settlement boundary, I'll accept that, but it is outside, in a sustainable location, close to local shops, services and facilities. I mean, you know, Gardeners Hill Road is a lane and it goes down quite steeply. It is covered in springs, and every so often these springs all burst at the same time. So very often you've got this waterfall effect coming down. The we oppose Baker Oaks, not because we drew the amended boundary around Baker Oaks, but the reason that we objected to Baker Oaks was the safety of pedestrians, and we were trying to negotiate a way through to Boundstone Road that didn't mean that pedestrians had to walk. The existing pathway, bit of paint, let's be honest, what we've got, a little bit of paint, people don't use it wisely, and it is so dangerous. There are schools, people that, you know, the majority of the cars that we were jumping out of the way of, if you'll pardon my English, were all going to schools at the time, you know, picking up, because it is a route that goes down to quite a few of the schools that are to the south of the town. But, you know, there's no shops anywhere near. You may get a bus if you're lucky into Rowledge from Boundstone Road, but you've got a heck of a hike up the hill on this virtual footway to get there. It's one of these sites that, you know, when we were doing the neighbourhood plan and we were looking at these, we wouldn't even consider this site. As I say, we didn't put in to begin with Baker Oaks, but when it was allowed on appeal, we obviously amended the built-up area boundary. But, you know, it is not a suitable site for a lot of houses. Gardeners Hill Road, you mentioned Frensham Vale, but all the houses around there are the older houses, you know, they're sort of the old houses that have been separate, divided or whatever. You know, there's a sort of history to the place. And putting in these modern houses, I find it very hard. I can see the logic. I am worried about creep. I always have been on this site. But, you know, the definition of sustainable location really is getting a little bit silly. I mean, the further we go outside, when we drew the built-up area boundary, we drew it so that development would be within it, and there would be buses and facilities, and some people would be able to walk to them. But when you start putting them further and further out, and, you know, down, it really is very rural as you go into Rowledge and then out to the to Frensham and areas. I don't know. I find this a really difficult one, and I am worried about creep. I really am down this road. Thank you, Councillor Munro.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I know this area well, and I remember the hoo-ha when the Baker Oaks development to the north, a much larger development, I should say, was eventually granted on appeal. There does seem to be a general tendency to build in this part of the world. Across Gardeners Hill Road, there is another development. Again, quite a small development, numbers of houses, but not in volume, and that seems to have been accepted. I think this is not perfect. The lack of amenities, shops in particular, is a very real one. There aren't any within miles, and that was brought up when we were fighting the Baker Oats development. But I think on balance, you know, the fact is we need houses, and I think this could actually blend in quite well with the surrounding countryside. It looks to me that it's been well designed. It's not overdevelopment. It's a very large site, and that developers could have put forward many other houses. I am, of course, at the back of my mind, well, it's all very well us refusing this. You know, how big will the costs be awarded against us by the appeals inspector? Okay, we have to act with our own consciences. Of course we have, but we've got to be realistic as well. So on balance, a short balance, anyway, I'm going to vote for this.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? So Councillor Ward, you can sum up, please.
I'll be brief then, just a few words. Sprawl and creep, ignoring the neighbourhood plan, digging cesspits, not sustainable, and if we have a problem with a road, let's not make it worse.
Thank you. We have a recommendation to approve that permission be granted. All those in favour of the recommendation, please raise your hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's lost, Chair. So we need another recommendation to refuse.
So we need another recommendation with reasons to refuse, please. Councillor Beeman.
Basically, it's an unsustainable location.
So we are objecting because of the unsustainable location. Do you have a seconder? You do, Councillor Coburn. Yep, I would have thought so.
So members, we do need to frame a reason for refusal. We can't just say it's unsustainable. So members, can you just give a little bit of consideration to actually what the reason and what the policies are that you are using to demonstrate the harm this development would cause?
Councillor Coburn.
It's contrary to the Farnham Neighbourhood Plan. It's outside the built-up area boundary, leading to it being in an unsustainable location, because the only means of transport from this development will be the car. There is no alternative. Well, that'll do for starters. Thank you.
Councillor Beeman, are you happy to add those to your original proposal to object?
Very much so, yes.
So members, before you vote on this, are you happy to delegate for me to identify the relevant policies in the neighbourhood plan? Yeah.
We take that silence as yes, councillors. So if the head of planning defines the policies that you're objecting to, would all those in favour of objecting please raise their hands? And those against objecting?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's refused, Chair. 6 votes to 5.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rivers. We're moving to item 11 on the agenda, which is WA 2024/01655, which is Mountain House, Station Road, Godalming. It's for the erection of 56 later living units with communal facilities, together with parking, landscaping and associated works following the demolition of the existing building, an updated bridge link to the Tannery car park, and the creation of temporary access. The case officer who's going to present this application is Russell Brown. Thank you, Russell.
Good evening, all. So this is an application for 56 later living apartments, which are for people aged 60 and over, and which fall within planning use class C3 residential dwellings. Okay, I'll start there again. This is a application for 56 later living apartments, which are for people aged 60 and over, and which fall within planning use class C3 residential dwellings. Also proposed are associated communal facilities on the ground floor and 2 guest suites on the upper stories. So all these apartments would be contained within a 5-storey building, 26 car parking spaces, landscaping, an updated bridge link to this Tannery car park, and the creation of temporary access for the construction period are part of the proposal as well. The scheme involves the demolition of the existing building, which is Mountain House. So the site is to the west of Godalming Town Centre, close to the train station, and southwest of Phillips Memorial Park. The application relates to the building indicated there, which is a vacant office building, which is L-shaped and sits across from the Tannery building already referenced, which is a 4-storey residential building previously converted from a commercial use. The site is surrounded by a one-way system serving the train station to the west, where land levels are noticeably higher, and the River Ock is to the east. Access to the site is to the north-east of Station Approach. In between, so this is existing site plan, which shows a car parking spaces between Mountain House and the Tannery for both buildings, with a car park to the rear of the subject building, which is just used by Mountain House. There is an existing bridge over the river to further car parking spaces to the east. Some of those car parking spaces fall within the red line boundary of this application. So just starting with some photos, the one to the left shows the building named as Friary House, but this is just an alternative name for the building. So for the purpose of the application, it's Mountain House. You can see the existing access to the building and the tannery, which is proposed to be enhanced through this application, including providing a shared surface and permeable paving. Just referring then to the rear car park, so you can see the access around the west side of the building to that, and has a barrier controlled access. The proposed building would be moved southwards into that space, providing more space to the front for access car parking and landscaping. And you can also see well, I suppose it's the main front principal elevation of the tannery building as well. So moving on to the proposed site plan, as with the existing building, the proposed building is also L-shaped with a packed pitch roof, part of which is going to be a green biodiversity green roof, and part of it which would be fitted with solar panels. Communal gardens are located to the rear. so it's to the south, southwest, with balconies or private amenity space on all floors. Secure access can be had down the southeast side of the building. Just moving on to a landscaping plan, which broadly shows the quantum of soft and hard landscaping. So you've got some trees, shrubs and hedges will be planted, as well as access areas of turf, lawn, climbers and herb and vegetable planters to the communal gardens to the south. So just rather than show all the floor plans, I think the most important, or the one that's most different is the ground floor. Just show some of the communal facilities. So you've got a lobby and a foyer, communal lounge, a multi-purpose room, wellness suite or wellbeing room, in addition to a staffed life host office at the entrance, which you can see just to the kind of west side of the northern protection. Direct access is provided from the communal lounge to the external patio area to the east. Moving on to the elevations, the proposed building will be constructed in brick with metal cladding to all of the 5th story and some of the 4th story. Composite windows and doors and metal balconies are also proposed. There are several entrances, one that is recessed. Hopefully you can see my cursor. One that is recessed from the northern protection, and then the main one is, you'll see that in the elevation later, that's into the side of this northern projection. And there's also another one directly to the stair core. And this is the rear elevation fronting Mill Lane. So it shows it in relation to the existing brick boundary wall along that lane. Part of this brick wall is to be demolished and rebuilt once the building has been constructed and prior to first occupation. The pedestrian gate here is to be reopened as part of the proposal. The 4th and the 5th stories would be set back from this elevation, which you can clearly see from the west side elevation. It also shows the main entrance to the building, which you can see on the ground floor here. And I thought I would include a section which is submitted as part of the design and access statement. So you can see, although it is 5 stories high, it would only slightly exceed the highest point of the Tannery, which is 4 stories, noting that as a commercial building, it is higher internal floor to ceiling heights. Those heights within the proposed building itself vary between 2.37 metres and approximately 2.6 metres. And just moving on to some CGIs of a proposed development. So you've got the access into the site, and then the entrance you can see clearly in the right-hand image, and then a bit more contextual on Mill Lane of the building, how it relates to, that's Solly's Mill, the white rendered building, which is a Grade 2 listed building. And you can kind of see the balconies and the communal gardens as well in the right-hand image, and just some further images there of the communal gardens and the balconies. And then the image on the right is the updated bridge link over to the car parking spaces. And that's it really. Happy to answer any questions that members have.
Thank you, Russell. Over to members of the committee. Oh, I beg your pardon. We have a public speaker who is the applicant, I believe, and he is a Mr. Tim Spencer. You have 4 minutes when you start to speak, and when if your microphone should light up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members. I'm Tim Spencer. I'm the Head of Planning at Pegasus Homes, who are the applicant in this matter. Pegasus is a developer of homes for people in their later lives, and has developed and operates around 40 communities, predominantly in the southeast, including a site in Cranley. Each of our developments is unique and designed to consider the site, neighbours, the surrounding environment and the local context. The NPPF calls on local planning authorities to approach decisions in a positive and creative way and encourages good quality pre-application discussions. In this respect, I must thank the Council's officers for the positive way in which we've worked together to refine the design and resolve matters in order to put the best possible development in front of you today. I'd also like to thank the Town Council for their early engagement and their sage advice, which has been of great value. We recognise that this is an important site. It's in a sensitive area and requires careful design consideration and in response to several key matters, such as the relationship to neighbouring properties, the way in which the site responds to the conservation area and listed buildings, the treatment of the river zone, SPA effects, and construction management. Thanks to constructive engagement with officers, neighbours and consultees and a good design team with local knowledge, we're very pleased to have designed what we believe will be a successful development. And this is reflected throughout a very thorough officer's report and its conclusion that the application accords with the development plan. The site is visually important, being located on a key route between the station and the town centre, and we wanted to create an attractive building that enhances this part of Godalming while also respecting the industrial heritage of this part of town. The development promotes Waverley's climate change and sustainability priorities with air source heat pumps, an area of green roof and photovoltaics, rainwater harvesting and SUDs, and a highly energy efficient and well insulated building. The PPG characterises the need for older people's housing as critical, and this is no different in Waverley. The development will make an important contribution to meeting this need, as well as delivering wider housing benefits, particularly for older residents. And as these older residents downsize, they free up under-occupied family homes, which will have a positive effect on alleviating pressure on greenfield sites. The development will unlock meaningful economic benefits as our residents support local businesses and facilities. Most important to us, however, is the potential to deliver homes and an environment which will enable those in their later life to live in Godalming on their own terms and with their independence supported within a caring community. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for this opportunity to highlight some of the design quality and other benefits of the development, and I hope that you will support our plans for this high quality development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer, and apology for my attempt to try and ignore you. It certainly was not intentional. So over to the committee. I've got Councillor Rivers, followed by Councillor Coburn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm a Godalming councillor and I'd like to speak in favour of this. I am minded to agree it. It is a truly sustainable location. It is steps from the High Street and steps from Godalming Station and adds valued housing to our town. Thank you.
Councillor Coburn. And then I think I'll go straight along because everybody's got their hand up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very definition of a sustainable location, isn't it? Stark contrast to what we've looked at earlier. And again, you know, they've worked with the town council, so you don't have any pushback from the town council. It's the way we'd like all planning to be, that, you know, the developers would work with the local community, would take into account the history of the site, the surrounding buildings, and produce something that fits in. And I think they've done it in this case. And I'm just so pleased that we've got something that, you know, the community wants, the borough needs, and it is so sustainable. We could use it as a model. This is what we mean by sustainable. You really can walk, you can get on the train, you can do everything from there on foot. Mind you, depends how old you are when you move in, doesn't it? But if you go in at 60, you'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll go from left to right. I can tell by the smiles on members' faces that they are taking a positive attitude. Councillor Munro.
Yes, this should pass, of course. I'm particularly impressed by the officers' ripostes to the concerns, quite legitimate concern raised by residents. I think they have provided convincing answers to all that and hopefully have allayed some of the concerns. I am worried about the parking, however. 60-year-olds, I can attest to this, they have cars too, you know, and there's only 20 parking spaces for 66 flats. When all these cars turn up, where will they park?
Was that a technical question or a comment?
Rather between the two, I thought. A rhetorical question.
Yes, so members, this is very, very typical of this type of accommodation, and it is normally the developers, the later living, actually do their own surveys of other similar properties within their own portfolios to demonstrate that this is an adequate parking arrangement. I think at a personal level, I've probably been dealing with this type of application for a very, very long time. And, you know, that is often the concern raised by members. But actually, because it is, you know, there will be a range of ages from the occupants. Yes, the 60-year-olds probably do own cars, but maybe some of the people in their 70s and 80s that will be occupying these units of accommodation will not be car drivers.
Councillor Steiger, did you have your hand up? No? Councillor Keane.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that we're looking, you know, plus 70, nearly 80-year-olds, and we all drive. So, you know, and I know somebody who's nearly 100 who's still driving. So I can assure you that they do drive late into their years now. But I would like to say that I really do applaud this. I think it's a fantastic development. Elderly people looking for somewhere to downsize very often struggle to find somewhere that they like and something that's sustainable. So we could even take the walkers up the road here. So, you know, I'm really in favour of this, and I would like to congratulate our team working so well with the developer to get this done, because I think it's going to be an excellent scheme. Thank you.
Councillor Rubini.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I don't really want to repeat it, but yes, it's a good scheme. 56 dwellings we wouldn't have had. However, my problem is, as I've raised many times before, there's no affordable housing. That means yet again, the town centre, no affordable housing. They have donated £229,000, I say. However, that isn't going to be in the town centre, is it? We don't know where these affordable dwellings are going to go. They could be in another village, they could be in another town somewhere. We don't know the size of them. And for that amount of money, how many would they have anyway? Because we say we should have 30%. So this £229,000 presumably is going to get about 20 houses. I just cannot see that. It's not going to happen. So I'm sorry to drag it up yet again, and I will be voting for this. However, we are building towns where our people cannot afford to live. And I'm sorry, I must bring that up, it's wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Rubini. Councillor Hussaini.
Well, yes, I share the comments of the fellow councillors. This is a very well-designed, sustainable building, and we're glad to have more dwellings and to be able to try and reach our housing targets. I'm very in favour of commercial to residential conversion also. I favour building on land that already exists rather than greenbelt. And I shared the concern about the parking as well. I calculated that a maximum there would be 154 residents at this place when you consider the room sizes. So yeah, I share the concern that 26 car parking spaces might be too little, but I hear what the planning officers have said and that it's close to a train station. So yeah, I'm very in favour of this. Thank you.
Councillor Beaman.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I won't repeat what others have said. It's obviously a very good development that we should approve. In terms of the comments that people made about parking, There've been a number of developments approved in Farnham with limited parking, and there's been two mitigations to that. One is the use of car clubs. In fact, I may have missed it, but I haven't noticed anything in the papers here that suggested that is a possible solution. And the other thing is there's been conditions applied that people couldn't have permits in the controlled parking zones in Farnham. I don't know Godalming well enough in that sense to know if that would be relevant here, to be honest. But I'd just like to ask if the car club thing had been considered, and could the controlled parking zone ban, if you like, help with the parking issue? Thank you.
So, members, there is a car club proposed as part of this, and that's set out in the report.
Councillor Beaman.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is a sustainable location. I share Councillor Beanie's view about no high affordable housing. The only comment I would actually make is that I see that it says that they cannot be secured any finance through the planning process to improve the signage to the station approach on forecourt area, which I think would be a benefit. Even a small amount, can we do some sort of small agreement to 106 or something for that to take place?
So that hasn't been part of the 106 agreement. So you've already got a viability issue. So if you want less money for affordable housing, then you could spend that money on something else. But you know, that's the amount you're dealing with.
Councillor Rubini.
Thank you for letting me come back, Chair. Just on that subject, with this 229,000, would it be possible when that money is spent on affordable housing, could the committee know where it is and what is actually purchased?
So members, we can provide that update through the affordable housing, but it will depend on when that is spent. So what we try and do is actually spend the contributions as quickly as possible, rather than to try and hold the money back for a geographical area, because the money's there to meet a housing need across the whole of the borough, not particularly in one particular area. And, you know, the priority is to actually provide the housing. So, yeah, we can certainly update in a later meeting on how we're spending Section 106 affordable housing contributions.
Yeah, thank you. I'd appreciate that, because it would at least give me a view as to what it's being spent on and where, i.e. is it a town centre, is it out in the countryside or village? At least it will give an idea of what's happening. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question from the head of planning? What in terms of when these contributions to affordable housing are agreed, what is the process to follow up and actually spend the money?
So we work across the council between our housing colleagues, so our housing enabling officers, planning and Section 106 officers, and also our housing development team. We would look at a range of opportunities, so either using these contributions to buy other affordable units on other schemes, so things that have already been built out, because obviously they're easy ways of getting additional affordable housing because someone else has built them and we just have to go and buy them, or use the contributions for our own development pipeline to actually secure affordable housing in a timely manner through that way.
Can it be used in the HRA for social housing?
So it's got to be additionality. So we can't just say, here's a lump of money, we'll move it from 106s to the HRA. So it actually has to be additionality.
Thank you. In that case, I think it's time to move to the recommendation that delegated authority be granted to the Assistant Director of Planning to grant planning permission, subject conditions and a Section 106 agreement to secure the occupancy of the apartments, a financial contribution in lieu of providing affordable housing on site, biodiversity net gain, and a financial contribution to deliver the physical measures in Phillips Memorial Park as spa mitigation. So again, we're using the old-fashioned method of raising hands. Please raise your hand if you're in favour of granting permission.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Time for me to go to the back of the chamber again.
So agenda item number 12 is TM 2025-01428, land known as the Nest Nursery, the Long Road, Farnham. And this is an application for the removal of trees subject of tree preservation 2624. Theo, over to you. Oh, is he?
I think so. Yeah.
Good evening, committee. I'm here to present a tree works application for a TPO, for the removal of TPO trees. Today, the application is deferred to the planning committee because it's received objections, 11 objections. The officer recommendation is that the consent be granted, subject to conditions. So the site in question is in Roledge. It is just north of Long Lane. The order, the TPO it relates to is a woodland category order, which means that all of the trees within the designated woodland area are protected, are subject to protection. The order was made in November 2024 over concerns that the trees are potentially at threat due to possible changes in land use. So the application itself requests the removal of 12 young trees. And the reason given is to allow access into the land. So the application is supported by a covering letter from the applicant and also the tree location plans. So we've got a wider plan here of the woodland area, and we can see that the trees to be removed are on the western edge of the woodlands. Within that covering letter were photographs of those trees, which are all identified as tree 1, tree 2, tree 3, etc. Up to tree 12, which is a holly. So 1 to 12 trees in total. So the application received objections. Those objections related to adverse impacts onto ecosystem services resulting from the loss of trees, harm to biodiversity and wildlife, citing a potential disturbance to bats and birds, erosion of environmental protections, so the fear of the precedent and the weakening of TPO protections, and also suspicion that access creation would facilitate future residential development. Deficiencies in the application were raised, citing absence of arboricultural evidence or ecological surveys. And then concerns over noise and disturbance that might arise from those works. So in considering applications, the local planning authority must have regard to, must assess the impact of the proposal on the amenity of the area and whether it is justified having regard to the supporting information. Specifically for applications for woodlands, When determining an application affecting a woodland, the authority must grant consent where it accords with good forestry practice, unless doing so would fail to secure the maintenance of the special character of the woodland or the woodland character of the area, and that's stated within Regulation 17 of the Tree Preservation Regulations. So I think there was concern that the application would have also been for construction work associated with the access, but the applicant has confirmed that the works are limited just to the removal of those trees to allow space. So any subsequent construction work relating to an access would require arboricultural oversight and may be subject to planning control or a further TPO application to ensure that adjacent trees are not damaged during those activities. So the officer site visit, the trees are identified to be young with small stem diameters and they have limited prominence within the woodland. Their removal is not considered to materially detract from the character or the amenity value of the woodland, and associated ecosystem services are not significantly impacted given the scale of the works. It's worth noting that due to either the small size, stem size, or the resultant timber volume, the works would fall below the thresholds of the Forestry Act 19th of the fresh. So the felling license would not be required for those works, basically. So the access creation is recognised to be a proportionate and reasonable element of woodland management to facilitate woodland management operations. It's also noted that given the closed canopy of character of the woodlands, replacement trees would unlikely establish successfully. Therefore, replacement planting conditions are not recommended in this case. And also the TPO remains a safeguard for future proposals, ensuring that trees can continue to be a material consideration in planning decisions. Any consent given by the council would not override other obligations of other legislation, wildlife and, for example, the Wildlife and Countryside Act or the Forestry Act for that matter. So it's concluded that the works are limited in scope and only relate to young trees of modest amenity value, and the removal of those trees is consistent with good forestry and arboricultural practice. The concerns raised by the neighbours are acknowledged. The officers consider that the impact of the woodland special character and amenity value and ecosystem services will be minimal. The TPO is not intended to prevent proportional management, and there are adequate safeguards remain in place to address any future development proposals separately. So the objections are not considered to provide overriding reason to not grant consent in this case. And the recommendation is that consent be granted subject to the condition, which requires a time, which gives a time limit and requires compliance with best practice.
Thank you. We have a speaker, Mr. Phil Radford. You have 4 minutes to speak from when you start, and the microphone is the middle button.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to speak. This application seeks consent to remove 12 relatively young self-seeded trees within the woodland TPO area at the Nest Nursery. The sole purpose is to reinstate a long-established access route recorded in the title deeds in order to enable proper management of the site. Your officer's report is clear. The trees concerned are of small stem diameter and limited prominence. Their removal will not materially affect the amenity value of the woodland or its contribution to the wider landscape. The works have been assessed as proportionate woodland management and consistent with good arboricultural practice. The approach is directly in line with policy NE2 of the local plan, part 1, which requires the council to maintain and enhance the borough's trees and woodlands while supporting management that accords with good forestry practice. It also accords with policy DM11 of the local plan, part 2, which confirms that tree preservation measures must be applied in a balanced way also allowing appropriate management where justified. I recognise the concerns have been raised, and I respect the right of neighbours to comment. I have personally written to each immediate neighbour who objected, thanking them for their input and welcoming further dialogue. It is also important to note that while 13 objections are recorded, several came from the same households, and in practice, a threshold of 10 objections was not, from different addresses was not met, which normally triggers committee referral. Nonetheless, the application is before you this evening, and I welcome a chance to address it. In terms of planning relevance, wildlife protection is secured under Wildlife and Planning under the Wildlife and Countryside Act. Granting consent here does not override these statutory safeguards. The TPO remains firmly in place across the southern woodland. Any future proposals would require fresh scrutiny and cannot be assumed or prejudged. The works fall well below the Forestry Act, allowing Forestry Act felling thresholds. Given the closed canopy and replanting is neither necessary or appropriate. So in summary, the application is modest in scope, limited to young trees and designed to support reasonable management of the woodland in accordance with the UK Forestry Standard. It has been professionally reviewed by your arboricultural officer, who concludes that the impact will be minimal and recommends approval. For these reasons, I respectfully ask the committee to accept the officer's recommendations and grant consent subject to the stated conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Redford. Members, we've had a very clear presentation. Councillor Coburn. Yes, I mean, I just wanted to say, you know, really, I don't think we have any choice in this. I think we're doing exactly the right thing in following the officer's recommendation. But you can understand because of the history of this site and the rumours that have been around this site for as long as I can remember, that as soon as anyone touches a tree, you know, the rumours start. And there's been a lot of, you know, we know sort of felling of trees ahead of other things, but this is a totally different application. It seeks to do what we should be enabling people to do, which is forestry management. And as long as the conditions are firm enough and we can make sure that they are, and we do protect the rest of the woodland, then I think we have no choice but to go along with the officer's recommendation. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No. So we go to the vote, and that the recommendation is that consent be granted subject to condition 1 and informatives 1 to 6. All those in favour of granting permission, please raise your hands.
Thank you, members. We now move on to applications not subject to public speaking. There are a couple of applications coming before you, which are, I suppose, technical in nature, in that one is the council is the applicant and the other is the ward council is the applicant. The first one, item 14 in your papers, is an NMA 2025-01625, site C regeneration area Oxford Ridge, Godalming. The amendment, it is an amendment to WA 2021/0122 on the design of 2 patio doors on flat block A and the repositioning of the bin and bike store to the rear. So I know this was Simon Dunlewin, but I believe he's no longer with us. And Russell Brown will present this.
Evening all again. So this is a non-material amendment to a 2021 permission. So you've got the design or the sizing of 2 patio doors to the rear of block A and the change to a bin bike store, as well as there's some changes to some some PV panels, some solar panels. So the location, again, it's another site in Godalming, just to the southwest. So the council owns the site, and it's the Oxford Ridge site. So this is site C of the regeneration scheme. So the application in front of you relates to the ground floor patio doors. So the approved is a bottom drawing there. So you can see there's a slight change to the, well, it's a width and the opening style of those patio doors. And on this elevation, you can also see there's a change to the solar panels. So there's a reduction in the 84 approved to 79. The change is to actually maximize the solar gain. And then you've also got a change to the bin and bike store. So you can see it's a linear shape just to the rear of a block adjacent to number 66. And then the location is roughly the same. The floor area of the bin and bike store is the same, but it is to be kind of almost square in shape as opposed to linear. The height stays the same as well. And then this is just a few photos just to highlight that only kind of the first floor and the roof are visible. And this is from a residential garden, so this is not a public viewpoint. But a public viewpoint can be had of the bin and bike store. So just to be clear, these changes are retrospective in nature, so they have already occurred. And I think the recommendation here is for approval. It's to a change in the condition to include the approved or the proposed drawings as submitted as part of this application. I'm happy to answer any questions that councillors may have on this application.
I don't see a great rush of hands. Can we move to the recommendation is that subject to a condition on plan numbers, non-material amendments be approved. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
That's unanimous, Chair.
We now move on to item 15, new papers, WA 2025/01109, Onerish House, the street, Guildford. This is for a certificate of lawfulness to confirm implementation of planning permission WA 2023/01504 by the excavation of foundings. This one is going to be presented by Dana. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for a certificate of lawfulness in order to confirm the implementation of a lawful development certificate granted under WA 2023/01504 by the excavation of foundations. This is an aerial view of the site. And this is a site location plan with the site outlined in red. And this is a photograph of the foundations works that have already taken place. And we also have the building control decision that the foundations have been laid according to building regulations. This application is brought to committee as the applicant is a member of the council. And the recommendation is to grant the certificate. Thank you.
A rush of hands? Let's go straight to the recommendation that the certificate of lawfulness is granted. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair. Approved.
Thank you. We now move to the final application this evening, item 16 on your agenda, WA 2025/01457 Wood Hill Sandpit. This is for the erection of a stable building, siting of a caravan for a rural workers dwelling, and the installation of a charcoal retort. And it's over to Sam Wallace. Thank you for your patience. You are the last presenter, so I am sure it will be a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. I'll try and make this relatively quick. So it's a full planning application at Wood Hill Sandpit to the northeast of Shamley Green, with the erection of a stable, caravan as a rural workers dwelling, and installation of a charcoal retort or charcoal furnace. The application is referred to Planning Committee as Wonersh Parish Council wished to have the item called in to assess the impact on the Surrey Hills National Landscape in line with Waverley's scheme of delegation. The head of services used her delegated authority to call the item in on their behalf. So I'll just give you some background. The proposal relates to a caravan for a rural workers dwelling, which is a dwelling that is needed for a rural enterprise such as agriculture or forestry. Planning policy allows for such dwellings subject to there being a need for the worker to be on site, that the accommodation is directly related to the rural enterprise, and that said enterprise has been in operation for a number of years. Policy DM16, the local plan, states that a rural business should be, to be eligible for a rural workers dwelling, should be operating for at least 3 years. As detailed in the report, the site is operated by Far Hill Forestry Limited, a working forestry business in excess of 3 years. The applicant wishes to expand and diversify the forestry through forestry activities, through further specialist activities that require a high degree of on-site supervision. And there's currently no existing accommodation on the wider site for the rural worker and their relevant dependents. So this is an aerial view of the site. It's an elongated parcel of land that's former site use was a historic sandpit, which has long since ceased. Given this historic use, the land in the centre sits in a central depression in the landscape with high and dense vegetation on all sides. And so you've got recent development. So on the eastern portion of the site includes a single-storey office accommodation as shown here. The office is sat adjacent to an area of hard standing. There's a large drying barn as shown in these pictures, and heavy machinery was in use on the officer's site visit. To the central western portion of the site is an open storage area used for wood chip and log storage with associated hard standing. And so this is the location block plan showing the location of the stables, rural workers dwelling and charcoal retort in the centre. The block plan also shows the location of a much larger forestry barn that has recently been approved under permitted development prior approval, but has yet to be constructed. So this shows the elevation and floor plan of the rural workers dwelling. It's a single-storey timber-clad structure, sort of inoffensive in appearance. And then you also have the elevation plans of the timber stables and the charcoal furnace. So the main matters for consideration, the need for a rural workers dwelling, which has been suitably demonstrated as detailed in the officer's report. Proposal would not be an appropriate greenbelt development, given the exemption for agriculture and forestry buildings. In terms of the Surrey Hills National Landscape, no harm is identified, and the National Landscape Advisor does not object. Therefore, subject to conditions, officers are recommending approval of this planning application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sam. Do we have any questions or speakers? Councillor Rubini.
Yes, what is a charcoal retort? What does it do?
On my limited understanding, it's a furnace, but you put the sort of wood chip that would otherwise be used for biomass. They put that in the furnace and create charcoal with it. It's a sort of 48-hour process. That's my limited knowledge on that.
Thank you. I just hadn't heard the term before. Thank you.
It's effectively a sealed boiler, and the wood is then heated to a high degree without oxygen. And this therefore makes it into charcoal. Charcoal is one of the oldest fuels on Earth. It's been used for 30,000 years.
So instead of creating a
Approximately.
problem by smoke,
Councillor Coburn.
Oh, well, that's completely changed my opinion of this then. What I was going to say was, because of the reason for the call-in, I was quite surprised to see in the report, you know, how positive the Surrey Hills management plan and indeed the Surrey Hill advisor was. So once I'd read the report, I couldn't see, you know, any reason not to approve it. But, you know, good that they had that opportunity for us to read a report like that and make sure that we did accept that it was, you know, the sort of thing that would be perfectly acceptable. And as you point out, it is a long-running business. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? We'll go straight to the recommendation then. The recommendation is that subject to conditions 1 to 8 and informatives 1 to 2, permission is granted. All those in favour, raise your hands.
That is unanimously approved, Chair.
That is the final item for this evening. At 1 minute past 9, the meeting is closed.